Have you ever found yourself doing a bunch of different tasks and to-dos while actually avoiding the one thing that would benefit you the most? Maybe you even had the intention of doing it. You put it on your to-do list. Perhaps you even blocked time out for it in your calendar. But then somehow you found yourself coming up with excuses, saying things like, well, I'll just check my email first so that way it's out of my way. Or let me take a quick minute to tidy up my desk, then I'll really be ready for the day. Oh, and I should probably knock out this one other thing too so that I can be prepared. And before you know it, you have traded the thing that matters most for a dozen things that don't. So let me ask you, why is it that when all of these excuses surface, we don't immediately shut them down? More often than not, we negotiate with our excuses. And in the process of doing so, we push aside the very actions that would actually move us forward. I find this behavior really fascinating because most people don't give up on their goals. They just negotiate them down one excuse at a time. And pretty soon, the thing that was a priority is nowhere to be seen. But here's the thing, and I see this in my coaching work again and again. Most people have really important goals, and they want to take the actions that will make those goals a reality. But when resistance shows up, and it almost always does, it's super common to take the easy road, to give in to the temptations that bring short-term comfort over that long-term momentum. But there is a research-backed way to disrupt this, and it's rooted in self-leadership. If this is our first time meeting, hello, my friend. I am Dr. Laura Miner, a leadership coach who helps people cultivate their inner leader for outer impact using the science of self-leadership. And today I want to share one of my favorite self-leadership strategies. I'm also going to give you a framework for implementing it, and I'm going to share the transformation that I personally experienced when I started using it. Now, to provide some context, this transformation occurred for me during a stretch where I was actually technically doing everything right. You see, I had clear goals, I had a good system, and I had this space in my calendar to make it all happen. And yet, I kept repeatedly sliding into busy work, the kind that felt productive in the moment, but wasn't actually moving me closer to my goals. And the way this showed up in my life was really sneaky. It had me convincing myself that the things I was getting distracted by were important. But the truth is, I was just negotiating with my excuses. And I didn't even realize how often I was doing it until I put on my self-leadership hat, zoomed out, and asked myself a much different question. Instead of thinking about what should I do today, I started asking myself, what does my future self need me to do today? I pictured her, my future self, 5 years ahead, fully in her zone, clear, grounded, making an impact, living the kind of life I was working toward. And then I explored. How does she think? How does she act? How does she motivate herself to keep moving forward? And in that moment, I wasn't just visualizing a fantasy version of myself. I was applying the 3 pillars of self-leadership to the future version of me that I was actively becoming. And once I could see her clearly, I was able to see the gap between my current habits and my future self. And not in a shameful way where I was beating myself up, but in a really empowering way. Because now, every time an excuse came up, I had a different filter for processing it. What would my future self do? Now, when procrastination did creep in, I didn't give into it or blindly push through it. I had new tools. So I paused and I asked myself, what does my future self need me to do right now? And then I took action on that insight. Intentional, deliberate, forward-leaning action. You see, connecting with my future self put my excuses into perspective. It took away their hold on me, and it empowered me to stop negotiating with them. And this is the power of identity-based self-leadership. Because when you lead from your future self, you tap into all three self-leadership pillars in a really powerful way. First, you shift how you think so that you're moving from short-term justification to long-term alignment. Second, you shift how you act so that you disengage your autopilot and move forward with more intention. And third, you shift how you motivate yourself so that you don't operate from a place of guilt or pressure, but are instead doing things with purpose. And when these three self-leadership pillars are all aligned, you propel yourself forward. Now, as a quick aside, if you're wondering what these three pillars are all about, I will include a link in the description to a previous video that I created on them. It adds a bit more depth to your self-leadership journey and ties into this video really well. All right, so let's walk through an exercise that has helped me and countless clients stop the cycle of negotiating with our excuses. So step one, this starts with meeting your future self. So I want you to imagine yourself 5 years from now, and not just your achievements, but who you are, how you carry yourself, how it feels to be living this life. Grab a piece of paper and answer these questions. What goals have I reached? What kind of work am I doing? What kind of life have I built? What impact am I creating? How do I spend my days? Who have I surrounded myself with? What emotions do I feel? One thing that is really important, you are not visualizing a fantasy. You are connecting with your future self. And this person becomes more real every time you lead yourself toward them. Now, once you have clarity around who your future self is, it is time for step 2, where you will apply the 3 pillars of self-leadership to your future self. And this is where things get really powerful. You're going to ask yourself, how does my future self think? What do they believe about themselves? What kind of thoughts do they not entertain anymore? Then ask, how does my future self act? What do they follow through on no matter what? What are their non-negotiables? And how do they respond when resistance shows up? And third, how does my future self take ownership of their motivation? What drives them? What's meaningful enough to help them keep showing up even when things are hard? What's really important here is realizing this is not about pretending to be someone you're not. It's about learning to lead as the person you're becoming. And once you've applied the 3 pillars to your future self, it is time for step 3, where you will then identify the gap between who you are and who it is that you're becoming. So ask yourself with total honesty and zero judgment, where are you thinking, acting, or motivating yourself in ways that are out of alignment with your future self? And where are you still negotiating with your excuses instead of showing up the way that your future self needs you to? This step is really important, and it takes courage to evaluate yourself with this much honesty. But once you do, and you see the gap between your current self and your future self, you can start to close that gap. So how do you do that? Well, you do that with step 4, where you will use your future self as a filter. This is where you're going to ask yourself at every turn, over and over, what does my future self need me to do right now? Sometimes it might be taking massive action. Other times it might require setting boundaries, or maybe you need to reset your priorities. Whatever the answer is, that is your self-leadership cue. Because your future self isn't waiting for perfection. They're just waiting for you to align who you are today with who it is that you're becoming. And when you do that, you fast track your progress. But there is still one step left. So step 5, the final step, this is where it's time to take one small action in the direction of your future self. Not someday, not next week or next quarter, but something that you can do today. Because that's how you shift your identity and step into your future self. That is how you build evidence and increase your confidence. And it is also how you stop negotiating with your excuses once and for all. Because when you start thinking like your future self and acting like your future self and motivating yourself from a future self perspective, you are actively leading yourself towards the person you're becoming. And that, my friend, changes everything. By the way, if you have found this helpful and you want more coaching content like this, be sure to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel so you always know when a new video drops. And also, if this stirred something in you and you want to take your self-leadership even further, then meet me in the next video where we're going to explore a research-backed technique for quieting imposter syndrome and building confidence that lasts. It is a strategy that truly rewires what you believe is possible. So if you are ready to keep leading from the inside out, then visit this video here, or maybe here. Sometimes I get this wrong, and we will continue our self-leadership journey together. Thank you so much, and I will see you there soon, my friend.